Lyra moved quickly through the glowing corridors of the Galactic restaurant. The place was enormous, floating above a blue-green planet that glimmered like a jewel in space. Strange lights shifted across the walls and gravity changed in small pockets, making tables float slightly above the ground. The air smelled of spices she had never known, strong and sweet at the same time. Humans were rare in this place. Most of the diners were aliens, tall ones with 4 arms, creatures with shining scales, and beings that shimmered like liquid metal. They talked in sounds that Lyra could not understand, but she had learned to read expressions, gestures, and subtle cues. Every day she moved among them, careful, quiet, invisible. But today felt different. She carried a tray with a steaming dish, her fingers steady despite the soft tremble in her stomach. A group of alien nobles sat at a long, curved table, their eyes following her every move. Some leaned forward, whispering in voices that clicked and hummed. Lyra kept her head down, focused on her task. She had learned that one mistake here could be dangerous. The doors to the central hall opened with a soft hiss. A hush fell over the room. All eyes turned toward a massive figure stepping inside. It was the alien emperor, Zarkin. He was taller than anyone Lyra had ever seen, with dark, chiseled scales covering his body and 4 glowing eyes that seemed to see through everything. His many arms moved gracefully, each holding some ornament of power. He walked slowly, deliberately, like a storm approaching. The chatter of the diners died. Lyra froze. She had served him before, but never so close, never with the entire hall watching. Her heart raced. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and electric. Zarkin's gaze swept across the tables and then, unexpectedly, it landed on her. "You," he said in a voice that vibrated through the room, "waitress. Explain why my dish is not perfect." The words echoed sharp and cold. Lyra swallowed hard. The dish she carried was flawless. She had double-checked everything. But Zarkin did not seem concerned with the truth. His eyes burned into her, demanding fear. I prepared it exactly as instructed, Your Majesty," she said, her voice shaking slightly, though she tried to sound calm. A low growl came from Zarkin's throat. His 4 arms moved in a rhythm as if conducting the silence in the room. "Do not speak to me like that, human. You will learn your place." The aliens around her watched, waiting for her to break. Many humans had already cowered, bowed, or fled in the past when faced with him. But Lyra did something no one expected. She lifted her chin slightly, keeping her hands steady. Her voice grew stronger. "I served your meal exactly as you asked. Something is wrong, please tell me. I will fix it." The room went completely silent. A few alien nobles leaned forward, whispering among themselves. Lyra could feel the heat of their curiosity, the unspoken question hanging in the air. How could a fragile human defy the Emperor? Zarkin's eyes narrowed. "You have spirit, human. But spirit does not impress me. Do you understand what happens to those who defy me?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Lyra replied, her voice steady now. Fear was still there, but it was joined by something stronger, determination. She would not let him see her shake. She would not give him the satisfaction. The Emperor circled her slowly, inspecting the dish. His eyes glowed, scanning every detail. "Interesting," he murmured. "A human who does not tremble. Most of your kind would crumble instantly." Lyra took a deep breath. She had trained herself for this, not in combat, not in war, but in courage. Courage was what humans had when everything seemed impossible. Courage was what kept her alive on colonies where storms could kill, where alien raiders attacked, where hope was scarce. And now, courage would carry her through this moment. Zarkin straightened suddenly, raising his arms. "Very well. Serve me my meal in the central hall. Fail, and I will decide your fate before all these witnesses." Lyra nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She moved forward, her tray steady despite the trembling of her legs. The crowd parted for her, eyes following every step. She could feel the weight of 1,000 gazes, both human and alien. Each step was a test, each breath a challenge. As she reached the Emperor's table, she noticed small details. The way his scales caught the light, the faint scent of ozone in the air, the quiet whispers of the alien court. She adjusted her posture, careful to keep her balance. One wrong move and everything could end in disaster. But something inside her stirred, a quiet, burning defiance that said she was not just a human to be controlled. She was more than a servant. She had dignity. She had courage. And perhaps, in that small act of bravery, she could show something to the galaxy. That humans, no matter how small or underestimated, could stand tall even in the face of power that seemed impossible to challenge. Zarkin reached for the dish. His glowing eyes bore into hers. The entire hall waited. Lyra's hand did not tremble. She placed the plate in front of him, her chin high, her heart racing, ready for whatever would come next. Lyra's hand hovered for a moment as she set the dish before Zarkin. The room was quiet, so quiet that she could hear the soft hum of the lights above and the faint rustle of floating menus. Zarkin's glowing eyes studied her, searching for weakness. She did not flinch. "You think you can stand here, human, without fear?" Zarkin's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Do you know what defiance costs?" Lyra swallowed but held her ground. She had learned early that fear could be useful if it was controlled. Could sharpen your mind and steal your courage. "I know the risks," she said simply. "But I will not show fear where it is not deserved." The Emperor's 4 arms flexed, each movement deliberate and threatening. Bold words. Most humans would have fallen to their knees at my voice. Most would beg for mercy. She straightened her back, keeping her gaze on him. "I am not most humans." A ripple ran through the room. The alien courtiers whispered in low tones, their voices a mix of shock and fascination. Some had never seen a human speak like this in the presence of power. The Emperor's own face, if his expression could be called that, twitched slightly as if he were surprised. Zarkin leaned forward. "You serve my food, yet your eyes do not tremble. You do not bend. Why?" Lyra's pulse quickened. Every second felt heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. "Because I do not serve fear. I serve respect, and even then only where it is earned." The Emperor's gaze flicked toward the dish again. He raised a clawed hand and pushed it slightly toward her. "Show me that you understand your place, human. Prove your worth." She nodded slowly, carefully. "I will, your majesty." He waved his arms, and the floating tables shifted aside to make room for a large, golden platform in the center of the hall. "Bring my meal there. Serve it to me perfectly or you will face the consequences." Lyra's stomach tightened. The platform floated several meters above the floor, and she would have to step onto it with her tray while the entire hall watched. Every eye in the room would be on her. But she reminded herself, fear is only dangerous if you let it control you. She stepped forward, the tray steady despite the trembling in her legs. The hum of whispers followed her. The noble aliens, with their polished scales and sharp claws, watched her like a small prey attempting something impossible. Some leaned closer, their expressions curious. Others shook their heads in disbelief. But she did not falter. As she approached the platform, a sudden gravity shift sent the tray tilting slightly. The dish wobbled and for a moment she thought it might fall. Instinctively, she adjusted her hand, steadying it with the quick reflexes she had trained over years of hard work. The dish remained safe. Zarkin's eyes glimmered with something unreadable. "Impressive," he said. "Most humans would have ruined it already." Lyra placed the plate on the platform, then took a step back. Her eyes met his. "It is done, your majesty." The Emperor studied her for a long, tense moment. Then unexpectedly he spoke in a low, curious tone. "You are different. Your courage, it is unusual. Humans are weak and fearful, yet you stand." Lyra felt a flicker of hope. This was more than just serving food, it was a chance to show what humans could do. "We survive by courage," she said simply. "Even when the odds are against us, we do not give up." A murmur spread through the hall. Some of the alien courtiers exchanged uneasy glances. Humans were supposed to be meek, easy to control. This human, standing so small and fragile yet so unafraid, challenged everything they believed. Zarkin leaned back, studying her carefully. "Do you think one small act of bravery can change anything?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Sometimes it only takes one. One act can inspire many. One human can make a difference." For the first time, the Emperor's glowing eyes narrowed, not with anger but with contemplation. The rest of the hall felt the shift in his mood. The air was heavy with tension, but also with something new, curiosity, a spark of doubt in the Emperor's authority. Then Zarkin raised his voice. "Humans are fascinating. I will not punish you this time, but remember, courage without caution can be deadly." Lyra bowed slightly, careful not to show arrogance. "I understand, your majesty." As she stepped down from the platform, whispers turned into quiet discussions among the alien nobles. Some were impressed. Some were unsettled. But all of them had noticed what she had done. A human had stood up to the Emperor and lived. Back at her station, Lyra's hands shook just a little as she cleaned the tray. But her heart felt lighter. She had faced the impossible and for now she had won. It was not a victory over the Emperor yet, but it was a start. One small act of courage, one human refusing to bend, it was enough to start something new. As she moved through the hall, she caught glimpses of other humans watching her. Their eyes were wide with admiration, hope glimmering where there had been only fear before. In that moment, Lyra realized something powerful. Courage was contagious. And one human, standing firm, could change more than just a single moment in the galactic restaurant. Somewhere deep in the Emperor's mind, she felt, a seed of doubt had been planted. A seed that, if it grew, could shake even the mightiest of rulers. And Lyra, a simple waitress from Earth, was ready to see just how far that seed could reach. The day after her confrontation with the Emperor, Lyra moved through the corridors of the galactic restaurant with a quiet confidence. The hallways, still glowing with soft lights, seemed less intimidating now. She carried trays as always, but her steps had a new purpose. The whispers from the nobles yesterday had not gone unnoticed. Some were shocked. Others were curious. And a few, she sensed, were quietly impressed. Humans had always been underestimated here. Everywhere Lyra looked, she saw aliens in power, their voices booming, their gestures commanding. Humans were small, fragile, and seen as insignificant. But today, one small act of courage had made a difference. Her mind drifted back to the moment she had faced Zarkin. The fear she had felt had been sharp and immediate, but beneath it, there had been something stronger, a stubborn, quiet defiance that humans carried in their bones. That defiance had kept her steady on the platform, had kept the dish safe, and had surprised the Emperor. Lyra paused near the observation deck that overlooked the space station's endless view. Ships drifted by, some carrying cargo, others with passengers from far-off planets. She thought of her home, a small colony on a remote planet, and of all the humans who had learned to survive against impossible odds. Survival required courage. Survival required action even when fear tried to stop you. And here, in this glittering alien world, that same courage could make a ripple, maybe even a wave. A small sound pulled her from her thoughts. It was a faint hum, almost like the vibration of a hidden engine. She turned and saw one of the alien courtiers watching her, a creature with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed too large for its face. The alien approached carefully, voice low. "Human, you impressed the Emperor yesterday. Not many survive such a test." Lyra nodded slowly. "I did not survive by chance," she said. "I survived because I knew my worth and refused to bow where it was not deserved." The alien tilted its head, intrigued. "Most humans are small and timid. You are different. Perhaps humans are stronger than we believed." Lyra smiled faintly, a spark of pride in her chest. "Strength comes in many forms," she said. "Sometimes it is not in power or weapons, but in standing firm when others expect you to fall." The alien studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Be careful, human. Courage can inspire, and it can also make enemies." Lyra's heart beat a little faster. She knew the warning was true. Zarkin would not forget her act of defiance. But she also knew that fear of consequences could not stop her. Courage was not just for survival, it was for showing others that humans could be more than what aliens believed. Later, she returned to her station, but the atmosphere had shifted. Other humans in the restaurant, who had once kept their heads low, now glanced at her with quiet admiration. Some even dared to straighten their backs, as if her bravery had given them permission to stand a little taller. Lyra felt a small surge of hope. Perhaps this was the start of something bigger. Perhaps humans, in a place where they had always been powerless, could show that courage mattered. It was a dangerous thought but also exhilarating. As the day passed, Zarkin's presence became noticeable everywhere. He did not speak to her directly again, but she could feel his gaze, like a weight pressing from afar. It was clear he was observing, calculating. The Emperor had always been powerful, but now he was cautious. He had never faced a human like Lyra before. In the evening, as the stars outside the station shimmered, Lyra found herself cleaning a tray near a quiet corner. A young human server approached her, voice trembling. "Lyra, I saw what you did. You made me feel like I could stand up too." Lyra's lips curved into a small, encouraging smile. "That is all it takes," she said softly. "One act can inspire another. Courage spreads if you let it." The young server's eyes shone with newfound determination. "I will try. I won't be afraid anymore." Lyra's heart lifted. This was more than survival. This was changing how humans were seen. Each small action, each moment of bravery could make a difference. The galactic restaurant, the Emperor, even the alien nobles, they were all part of a world that was beginning to notice human courage. Night came to the station, and the lights dimmed slightly, casting long shadows across the floating tables. Lyra sat for a moment, looking out at the vast emptiness of space. She thought of all the humans back home, of the struggles and dangers they faced, and of the courage that kept them alive. And she thought of the Emperor, still watching, still powerful, still a threat. But Lyra was not afraid. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, it was acting in spite of it. And one human, standing firm, could start something that no alien power could ignore. Somewhere in the shadows of the restaurant, she could sense that change was beginning. Whispered conversations, curious glances, subtle gestures, aliens were noticing. Humans were noticing. And Lyra, a simple waitress, had sparked it all. She rose to her feet, straightening her back, ready for whatever the next day would bring. The Emperor might challenge her again, and the court might try to suppress human defiance. But Lyra knew this. Courage had power, and sometimes one human was enough to remind a galaxy that fear was never the only choice. And so she continued her work, carrying dishes, moving through the halls, but never small in spirit. She was human. She was brave. And she would never stop showing it. The next morning, the galactic restaurant buzzed with unusual energy. Aliens moved quickly through the corridors, whispering to one another. Humans glanced nervously around, but there was a new spark in their eyes, a quiet hope, a flicker of pride. Lyra felt it too. Something was shifting, and it had begun with her small act of defiance. A deep chime echoed through the halls. It was a summons she had anticipated. The Emperor wanted her in the grand hall. Her heart tightened, but she did not tremble. She had faced him before and survived. This time would be different. As she approached the massive doors of the grand hall, she saw it was already filled. The alien nobles had taken their seats in the floating balconies above, their many eyes fixed on the center stage. Humans had been gathered along the side walls, their expressions wary but curious. The air was thick with tension. Zarkin stood at the far end of the hall, arms folded, his glowing eyes scanning the room. He was taller and more imposing than ever, his presence radiating authority. The entire court waited for Lyra to approach, every whisper fading into silence. She stepped forward, tray in hand, moving steadily across the floating platform that connected the hall. Each step was deliberate, each breath measured. The Emperor's eyes followed her every move, sharp and calculating. "You have returned, human," Zarkin said, his voice filling the hall. "Do you understand why you are here?" "Yes, your majesty," Lyra replied, her voice clear and firm. "You summoned me to face you again." A low, rumbling laugh echoed from the Emperor. "Face me? Or defy me? You are bold." Most humans would collapse at this moment. Lyra's lips curved into a small, confident smile. "I am not most humans." The crowd murmured. Alien nobles exchanged uneasy glances. Humans along the walls whispered quietly to one another. Lyra could feel their hope growing. One human had already stood. One human had shown courage. And now they could all believe that defiance was possible. Zarkin gestured with one of his massive arms, and a golden chair floated forward. "Speak," he commanded. "Tell me why you continue to challenge me. Why do you not fear death, humiliation, or failure?" Lyra set her tray down carefully, letting it hover beside the chair. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every eye in the hall upon her. "I do not challenge you for myself, your majesty. I challenge you for every human who has been told they are weak, small, or unimportant. We may be fewer in number, but we are brave. We are clever. And we refuse to bow to fear alone." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. He leaned forward slightly as if studying her very soul. "Brave words," he said slowly. "But words alone do not change the balance of power. Courage without strength is meaningless." Lyra's hands clenched slightly at her sides, but she did not move back. Courage is the first step to strength. And strength is measured not only in power but in action. One human can inspire many, one act can change the course of a moment or even a lifetime. A hush fell over the grand hall. Even the aliens, so confident in their superiority, paused to watch. Zarkin's arms twitched with impatience, but his eyes betrayed curiosity, something he rarely displayed. "Very well," he said, his voice cold but quiet. "Show me this courage, human. Prove that your words have meaning." Lyra stepped forward, deliberately placing herself in the center of the floating platform. Around her, the aliens' floating tables shimmered, casting strange reflections across the walls. Her gaze never wavered from the Emperor. "I have already proven it, your majesty," she said. "Not with strength but with choice. I chose to stand. I chose to act. And I will do so again if it inspires others to believe in themselves." The Emperor's eyes glowed brighter as if reacting to her words. "Do you understand the consequences if you fail again?" "I do," Lyra replied simply. But courage is only meaningful when it is measured against risk. If we fear the consequences, we can never do what is right or necessary. Zarkin stared at her for a long moment. The grand hall was silent except for the soft hum of floating lights and the distant sounds of the space station beyond. Then, slowly he lowered his arms. "Interesting," he murmured. "A human who speaks with reason, defiance, and dignity. You are unusual." Lyra straightened, feeling the eyes of the hall upon her. The aliens were shocked. Humans were astonished. For the first time, the Emperor did not respond with immediate punishment. Instead, he observed, curious and cautious. "Perhaps," Zarkin continued, "there is more to humans than I believed. Perhaps one act of courage can indeed ripple outward." Lyra's heart raced, but she stayed calm. She had won a small victory, not by fighting, not by weapons, but by standing firm, by speaking truth and showing bravery. The Emperor had acknowledged it, and the others had seen it. From the back of the hall, humans whispered quietly to one another, inspired by her example. Their heads were higher, their voices steadier. Courage, Lyra realized, was contagious. Zarkin's eyes lingered on her as she stepped back from the platform. He did not strike, he did not punish. But she knew this was only the beginning. The Emperor would watch her closely, and the court would remember her defiance. She had sparked something, a small fire that could grow into a movement, a reminder that even one human could make a difference in a galaxy that believed they were powerless. Lyra picked up her tray and moved through the hall, careful, steady, proud. She had faced the Emperor and survived. She had shown what humans could do. And in that moment, the Galactic Restaurant was no longer just a place of service and fear. It was a stage where courage, even in its simplest form, could challenge the greatest power in the galaxy. And Lyra, a simple human waitress, had done just that. The next few days in the Galactic Restaurant were different. The air still buzzed with activity, but a subtle tension threaded through the corridors. Alien nobles whispered quietly among themselves, their eyes flicking toward the human section. Humans, once timid and silent, walked with a little more confidence, their heads held higher. Lyra noticed it with a small smile. Courage, she realized, was like a seed. It spread quietly, unnoticed at first, but it could grow into something powerful. Lyra returned to her daily work, carrying trays, serving food, and moving through the glowing halls. She kept her focus, but she noticed subtle changes everywhere. Some humans lingered a moment longer before bending, some dared a quiet word of defiance when asked to perform menial tasks. The aliens watched too, some with suspicion, others with curiosity. The story of the human who had faced the Emperor and survived had traveled faster than she expected. Zarkin had not spoken to her directly since the confrontation, but she could feel his presence everywhere. His eyes followed her, sometimes from a distance, and his advisors whispered frequently about her courage. She knew he was calculating, thinking, perhaps even reconsidering what he believed about humans. They were not weak, not simple, not predictable. One human had stood, and now the galaxy was watching. One evening, as Lyra polished trays near a quiet corner, a small group of human servers approached her. Their faces were filled with nervous excitement. "Lyra, we saw what you did. You gave us hope," one of them said. His hands fidgeted, but his voice was steady. Lyra nodded gently. "Hope is important," she said. "And courage, even in small doses, can spread. You don't need to be fearless, only willing to stand when it matters." The young humans looked at each other, their expressions brightening. It was the first spark of rebellion, not against the Emperor directly but against fear itself. Lyra felt pride but also caution. Courage, she knew, could be dangerous as well as powerful. The Emperor, meanwhile, remained a looming presence. His glowing eyes often followed her silently, and whispers from the court suggested he was both impressed and unsettled. He did not punish her further, but neither did he ignore her. Zarkin's advisors debated constantly, how to manage a human who defied the Emperor and survived. How to maintain order in a world now shaken by one person's bravery. One day the Emperor summoned Lyra once again, but this time the tone was different. There was no anger in his voice. Instead it was measured, almost curious. "Human," he said, "your actions have caused much discussion in my court. You have changed the way some view your kind. Tell me, do you understand the weight of what you have done?" Lyra bowed slightly. "Yes, your majesty. I know one small act of courage does not change everything. But it can inspire others, and sometimes that is enough to shift the course of events." Zarkin's eyes glowed brighter for a moment, and then he nodded slowly. "Perhaps, humans are not as weak as I assumed. You are different, and your courage has made others think, question, and act." Lyra felt a quiet satisfaction. She had not needed to fight him with weapons, nor deceive him with trickery. She had stood, spoken, and acted with bravery. That had been enough. Even the Emperor had noticed. Word of her courage spread beyond the restaurant. Humans in nearby colonies, hearing the tale of the waitress who defied an emperor, lifted their heads a little higher. Some began to speak up, to question orders, to take risks that they had previously avoided. The ripple effect grew slowly but steadily, carrying hope wherever it touched. Even among the aliens, Lyra noticed subtle changes. A few nobles approached her cautiously, offering words of respect, while others watched, reconsidering the ways they had treated humans. Fear and intimidation had long ruled the court, but now something new was present: respect for bravery, no matter the size or strength of the one who showed it. Lyra returned to her work each day with a sense of purpose. She served dishes, cleaned tables, and moved through the floating corridors, but she carried more than trays. She carried courage, hope, and the example that humans could stand tall. One act, one simple refusal to bow to fear, had made the galaxy pause and notice. The Emperor observed quietly, his expression unreadable. He did not speak of punishment nor of reward. But Lyra could sense the subtle shift in his thoughts. A human had faced him and remained unbroken. That fact would linger in the court, quietly changing perceptions, planting seeds of doubt in those who assumed power could control everything. In the quiet moments, when the restaurant lights dimmed and the halls hummed softly with energy, Lyra reflected on what had happened. Courage was not about being fearless. Courage was about standing when others expected you to fall. Courage was about inspiring others by showing them that even the smallest, weakest, most overlooked person could matter. And now she realized it had worked. Humans were being noticed. Courage was spreading. The Emperor could not ignore it. The galaxy had witnessed a simple waitress challenge the mightiest power, and she had survived, stronger and braver than ever. Lyra straightened her back and moved through the hall with quiet pride. She was a human, fragile in body but unyielding in spirit. She had started something and it would grow. One act of courage, one human standing firm, could ripple across the galaxy, reminding everyone that fear was never the only choice. And in that moment, in the glowing halls of the galactic restaurant, Lyra smiled. She had defied an emperor. She had inspired her kind. She had shown the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. The ripple had begun. And it would not stop.